Click here to subscribe to our channel and do not forget to press the bell icon to get regular updates of our videos.
We'll continue with our discussion on the important topics for the upcoming mains for civil services, that is mains 2017. As we have already seen in some of the important topics related to the topic energy, okay, fine. There in energy I would like to add two more topics, like one is Ujjwala scheme of the government of India. Now Ujjwala scheme, if you see, it has been in news like anything. Every petrol pump you see in the country, you see that 2 crore families have already been benefited. Okay, so this scheme actually basically is the world's largest clean energy program. This is how you will be starting your answer. The objective of this scheme is to provide benefits to 5 crore families who are below poverty line by providing free LPG connection, and obviously the layout for this scheme is 8,000 crore. So 5 crore obviously families, each family will be provided 1600 rupees upfront, and this is how it will be 8,000 crore rupees. The scheme obviously has been quite revolutionary because it has already been benefited around 2 crore family, that you can say around 40% of the target has already been achieved. So like the thing is, he will be asking some of the challenges associated with the implementation of this scheme, the spin-offs, the positives. So obviously the positives you can write here. Obviously you can bring this gender empowerment in this answer. And another thing, obviously you can bring the women and child health over here. As you might be knowing, the after blood pressure, the second biggest cause of the deaths is indoor air pollution. And obviously if you are removing that wood and highly polluting fuels in the rural areas, that is biomass, by the LPG, you are addressing a very important aspect, that is obviously addressing the indoor air pollution over there. So that is it. Obviously one more part is it will help in combating climate change as well, because that when that biomass is being burned, that biomass produce this carbon particles, and these carbon particles, which we call as black carbon, carbon black, it is also known as short-lived climate forcers. Short-lived climate forcer, what's the meaning? Their lifespan compared to the other greenhouse gases is very short, but despite that their global warming potential is very, very high. And these short-lived climate forces are obviously being responsible in some way or the other for the melting of Himalayan glaciers. So you have already got 3 to 4 points when it comes to the positive aspect of this scheme. So now obviously in very crisp manner, challenges. So actually the challenge is accessibility and affordability. Just remember 2 words, accessibility and affordability. Accessibility means obviously we need to have these LPG distributors right up to the grassroots level, that is the village level, which is not happening. So obviously although the scheme has provided for the Gramin Vitraks, use these 2 words, Gramin Vitraks, but unfortunately they are, most of the places they are non-existent, so we need to bring them into existence. Another thing over here is affordability. Most of the people, or rather all the people who are being covered by this scheme are below poverty line. Their monthly income is hardly 3 to 4,000 rupees. And they are finding it extremely difficult how to take out that whatever is the cost of the cylinder from their monthly income to get it refilled, because government will provide only the first cylinder. Later on you have to pay for refilling the cylinders. So that is obviously one of the biggest issues which has emerged in this scheme, is people are not turning up when it comes to refilling the cylinder. So obviously you need to provide the solution in your answer. In my opinion, we can write just obviously, at least if I have to write the answer, I will be mentioning these 2 things. Solution, first solution is obviously Gramin Vitraks have to be there. What is the second solution? Second solution is obviously we can create multiple sizes of the cylinders. If somebody cannot afford a big 14.2 kilogram that red cylinder, then there is some smaller option should be made available to them. Okay, at least they will continue with the scheme. So at least the scheme will keep on making some impact. That's more important rather than simply obviously allowing these people to drift again back to the use of the biomass. So what will happen? Whatever little bit benefits we have got, they will wither, they will be gone. And one more is, why not we should have these ASHA workers be involved into the scheme. These workers will be able to convince the women or the females in the families, so obviously, and they will be able to tell them the other benefits of this scheme coming out. So obviously this is Ujjwala for you. Another possible topic related is withdrawal of US President Donald Trump from the Paris Agreement that we have already discussed. So then obviously now the energy is being done. After energy, the next topic is biotechnology. If you see biotechnology, the important topics, biotechnology and IPR, basically, next important module, biotech, IPR and health. If you see biotech, IPR and health, first and foremost, I will be bringing here edible GM crops. Obviously, this question will be asked because of GM mustard. Then second will be asking is genome editing. Third, that will be because of this antibiotic resistance. Fourth, generic drugs. Fifth, TRIPS plus. Sixth, biopiracy. Okay, so obviously one very important topic is edible GM crops. Edible GM crops like GM mustard. GM mustard, obviously there have been a lot of controversy associated with it. The possible question is like why there is so much of resistance when it comes to introduction of edible GM crops, which is not the case with the non-edible GM crop like BT cotton. Another aspect is what are the issues, like is India ready when it comes to the introduction of edible GM crops? Fine. So let's like edible GM crops, GM mustard, obviously it is the first transgenic crop or genetically modified crop which has been developed in India. Jointly developed, obviously not jointly, it is developed by a team led by former Vice Chancellor of Delhi University, Mr. Deepak Pantel. GM mustard, what's the objective? It is also known as DMH11, Dhara Mustard Hybrid 11. The objective of developing DMH11 or GM mustard is to increase the productivity, that is the yield, means per unit area there should be more production. And in GM mustard they achieved that increase in yield by developing this hybrid variety between two varieties, of two varieties. First was Indian variety, that is Varuna, and the other was Eastern European variety, Early Hira. This is how we have got. So GM mustard, like if you see, what are the issues? First and foremost, the issue is it is edible GM crops. And what happened actually, in 2012, Technical Experts Committee was appointed by Supreme Court of India. That committee has recommended that Government of India should not allow edible GM crops for the next 10 years. Means for a decade, the committee has said no for the introduction of adding edible GM crop, and obviously that decade is not over. Actually, it's not a question of decade. The question is why they are saying that for 10 years we should not allow. Answer, first and foremost answer here is there are some biosafety issues associated with the GM crops and they needs to be properly addressed. So there are some question marks associated with them, that we don't know what will happen if these crops are allowed to be consumed by the human beings. And this was a very important reason when 2009 and 10 Indian government or government of India did not allow the introduction of BT brinjal, which is again a transgenic or GM crop and again an edible transgenic crop. So a simple question here is, a critical question here is, what has changed in last 6-7 years? Virtually nothing. That's the first question, no answer. Second reason why people are protesting is this: the technical experts committee has said that we should never allow introduction of herbicide tolerant variety. GM mustard is a herbicide tolerant. And the third aspect here is very, very important, is that the project of GM mustard was financed by the government of India. It's a government funded project. And the genes, that is bar, barnase and bar star, which are being used in the developing GM mustard, are patented by Bayer Crop Sciences, which is a German company. So another question which is being asked by the people is, what are the terms of engagement between a team which has developed GM mustard and obviously the corporation which is having the patent for them? We don't know. And obviously it's a question of probity or proprietorship. Probity in public life you can bring. And another aspect is, the report about safety has been very clear when it comes to biosafety of the genes, that is bar gene, barnase gene, bar star, which you might have prepared for your PT exam. But the report is silent when it comes to the other biosafety aspects, especially the use of herbicide glufosinate. And glufosinate obviously is a possible health hazard. Okay, fine. One more reason why there is a resistance when it comes to GM mustard, not BT cotton. In 2012, Ministry of Consumer Affairs has issued a notification, and that notification says if there is an edible GM product, then it is mandatory for the manufacturer to specify 2 alphabets on that product. GM, genetic modification, means that product which is there in that packet that will be consumed by the human being is having some genetically modified component. So when these questions will be answered, then obviously you can say that India is ready for the introduction of the edible GM crops in general or GM mustard in particular. But there is other side of argument as well. Other side of the argument is that European Union has funded more than hundreds of studies on edible GM crops and the possible health impacts. Not even a single study has been able to conclusively prove the health hazards associated with the GM crops. That is also true. So what to do? That's the question. Actually, the answer, in my opinion, is, being a mega diverse country, which India is in terms of biodiversity, India needs to go slow. And how we can go slow? Slow doesn't mean that we should stop. We should go slow by having first a very strong regulatory framework for biotechnology, as recommended by the committee led by Mr. Swaminathan. The committee has recommended the setting up of National Biotechnology Regulatory Authority. Then obviously we should continue with the introduction of edible GM crops. I hope it's fine. Why we need edible GM crops? Actually, that's a fact. That is also a necessity. Why it is a necessity? Because climate change. We are talking about climate smart agriculture. We are talking about climate change resilient agriculture, both are same. So here obviously government is looking to explore the options for future so that the food security is not affected. So this is one way, this is obviously one of the options being explored by the government. It's not that the government is having some obsession, it's that it is becoming a virtual necessity. That's why you need to test these things right now, so that in 2030 or 40, when climate change will be obviously at a certain another level, in terms of temperature increase, floods, cyclones, etc., 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 we should have the option to address the question of food security. That's why you need to work today, obviously, on these things. I hope it's fine. Okay. Now come to the next point, that is genome editing. Genome editing or germline editing, it is in news because what we call this CRISPR-Cas9. All of you have prepared this for your PT exam. CRISPR-Cas9. That is clustered, regularly interspersed palindromic repeats. Actually, CRISPR-Cas9 is nothing but a tool for genome editing. When genome editing is done in the gametes, gametes means sperm and the ovum, that is known as germline editing. So germline editing is a more, you can say, a narrower version of genome editing. Because of CRISPR-Cas9, CRISPR-Cas9 is not the first tool. There have been tools earlier as well, but it is the most effective in terms of performance, in terms of user friendliness, in terms of accuracy to carry out genome editing. But the question is, what is genome editing? In this case, editing implies removing a particular section of the DNA. Removing a particular section of the DNA. So in mains, he will simply be asking the ethical concerns, at the same time the applied aspect. So first discuss the applied aspect. First thing in germline editing is positive. Let's talk positive. In this case is, we can stop the transfer of disease causing genes from one generation to next generation, from parents to the kids. That's the first. Second is, we can make our crops disease resistant, like smut and rust is there in wheat and rice. Remember, in transgenics, we are making them pest resistant. We are not making them resistant to the diseases caused by fungus and all. So that is one part. Gene edited crops is different from transgenic crops. Another thing is, we are probably closest when it comes to working out the solution for HIV infection by using germline editing, for working out the solution for hepatitis infection by using germline editing. A scientist in China has already announced the use of CRISPR-Cas9 to treat cancer tumor in the lungs. So this type of things will become easy. These are positives. What about negatives? Negatives, first and foremost, weapons of mass destruction. This you must be writing in your answer. Weapons of mass destruction in this era of terrorist organizations having access to all types of information because of this information technology is available. They can make biological weapons more harmful. That's one aspect by using this thing. Another is designer babies. Designer babies, when the genes will be knocked out and new genes will be inserted, not for addressing some health concern, just because of obviously like bringing some changes, obviously when it comes to related to academic achievements or sports achievement, like that type of a thing. These are obviously a very serious, you can say, ethical issues which might come up in future. So again, what we need a strong regulatory framework. Same thing, MS Swaminathan committee recommended as far as India. But the question is how this regulation will be done at the international level. For that you can bring an international convention protocol known as Cartagena Protocol. Cartagena Protocol is also known as Biosafety Protocol, and it deals with the application of modern biotechnology, and obviously this is modern biotechnology. Fine? So these 4-5 points, nothing more than this. Then comes to antibiotic resistance. See, when it comes to antibiotic resistance, what you need to remember in your answer, just focus on these 4-5 points, at least minimum. First, NDM1 and MCR1. These are the genes. Second, we will write the reasons for antibiotic resistance. Then we will write how it spreads, mechanisms involved. Fourth, what has been done. And fifth, what needs to be done. Okay, just 5 points. So NDM1 and MCR1, what is antibiotic resistance? When the bacteria and the other microbes starts obviously developing immunity against the antibiotics, which are the chemicals used for the treatment of the infections. It is obviously a very big issue because of drug resistant TB and all these things which are happening. So some time back there was a news in a science journal, Lancet, and that article said that because of some irrational use of antibiotics, irrational means over the counter availability of antibiotics, irrational means use of very strong doses of antibiotics, irrational means using very weak dosages of antibiotic, irrational means non-human use of antibiotics like poultry products and all that. There is emergence of a super bug, BUG bug, and that super bug was showing resistance to the biggest class means in terms of number, biggest class of antibiotics, beta lactams. I'll just write the name, beta lactams. And they said it is because of the gene NDM1. What is NDM1? New Delhi metallo beta lactamase 1. So they have named this gene after the national capital, and this is something we should not be proud of as an Indian. They said because of this gene, these antibiotics are not working, and they named it after national capital of India. Obviously, we were not amused, we were annoyed, we protested, but unfortunately the name was not changed. Then few years, maybe 2015 if I am not wrong, in China they discovered a bacteria that was showing resistance to the most powerful, now in this case it is most powerful antibiotic, colistin. And it is because of the gene MCR1. Now here C stands for colistin, not China. That is mechanism of colistin resistance. When MCR1 gene was discovered, people used the term pan-antibiotic resistance. Pan-antibiotic resistance means gradually all the bacteria will acquire resistance against the antibiotics. Some even suggested antibiotic apocalypse. Antibiotic apocalypse means the era of antibiotic is over. We have reached the same point from where we have started. Earlier the antibiotics were not there, today the antibiotics are not effective. Actually the reasons I have already told you, non-human use, over the counter availability, to such a very strong dosages and all that. Another very important reason is the lack of interest on the part of pharmaceutical companies to invest in the research and development of the antibiotics. Lack of interest. Why? Because antibiotics is a short-term course. A person needs it maximum for a week. These pharmaceutical companies have better options to invest. Better options like anti-diabetes medicine, anti-HIV, cardiovascular. There the person has to take these medicines lifelong, sale will be higher, profits will be more, here profits will be less. So until unless this issue is also addressed, we won't be able to address the problem of antibiotic resistance. Now the question is how it spreads. When it comes to antibiotic spread, there are two mechanisms: horizontal gene transfer, vertical gene transfer. Horizontal gene transfer from one species to another species. 1, 2, 3, to 4 to 5. So gradually what will happen? All the species will become antibiotic resistant. That is pan-antibiotic resistance. So in your answer, pan-antibiotic resistance will be linked with horizontal gene transfer. These are very minor things, but makes a lot of difference to your answer. Vertical gene transfer within the species from one generation to another generation. So if I have to say this is a lesser level compared to this, because here the problem will be confined to particular species. Here the problem will spread from one species to another species. In our exam, these two are most vital compared to these three. What has been done? Okay, obviously, first and foremost, what has been done is this. We are having a red line campaign. Red line campaign to create awareness among the people regarding this problem. What is red line? There is a narrow strip of red color on the antibiotic strips. Another is this: Drugs and Cosmetics Act have been amended, and after the amendment of the Drugs and Cosmetics Act, antibiotics have been brought in Schedule H1 category. Schedule H1 category means these medicines can be given only on the basis of prescription. Okay, and moreover, the medical shops have to get this xeroxed and they have to keep the record for at least 2 years. That is another thing which has been done. Kerala has adopted antibiogram model, where obviously they are monitoring the consumption of antibiotics and the emergence of antibiotic resistance. These are the steps which have been taken in the country. Chennai Declaration was made in 2014 to address all the reasons for antibiotic resistance. What else needs to be done? In my opinion, first and foremost, we need to be really get strict with the over-the-counter availability of antibiotics. We should not be lenient with that apart. There should be some obviously exemplary punishment and penalties for that. If not punishment, penalty at least must be there. Second is, there should be some modification in the medical curriculum, but these are obviously okay things. What else we need? We need new antibiotics. So how can we have new antibiotics? Why can't we have public-private partnership for the antibiotic research and development? Public-private partnership, obviously not exactly, you can't call it public-private partnership in the strict sense, but very classical example is the partnership of Gates Foundation and GlaxoSmithKline to develop the anti-malarial vaccine. That type of initiative needs to be taken to come up with new antibiotics. This is antibiotic resistance. Fine. Just one more we'll have on biotechnology, that is the generic drugs. Then biopiracy we will discuss. See, generic drugs, if you see, like they are the buzzword. There is Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi program. There is a free generic drug policy. Recently, Prime Minister has said that obviously in government hospitals, the generic formulations should be prescribed rather than the brand name. These are very, very positive steps which are being taken. But the question is, why we need generic drugs? What has been done to obviously to have generic drugs? Generic drugs are those which are manufactured. This is a new topic, generic drugs. Okay, let me. See, generic drugs are those like which are described by the name of the salt. Name of the salt. Name means here chemical name of the salt. There is something branded generics as well which are available in the market, where obviously people can buy from the medical shops. Generally those which are defined by the name of the salt are for government hospitals. Generic drugs are recognized as a very important tool for universal health coverage. So that will be your second point of the answer, universal health coverage. What is the core of universal health coverage? The core of universal health coverage is affordability. As everybody knows, around 75% of the total expenditure on health is on medicines. So if you can take care of the cost of the medicine, then obviously you are addressing this particular aspect, that is affordability. And generic drugs definitely addresses the cost of the medicines. There is no doubt about that. So here the question is, what has been done? Obviously we have some policies like free generic drug policy of 2012, and the target of this policy was to cover 52% of population by 2017 with the free generic drugs. That policy mandated if a patient is visiting a government hospital, then it is mandatory for the doctor to prescribe only the generic medicines. Then obviously today we are having a focus on Pradhan Mantri Bharatiya Jan Aushadhi program. Under this scheme, 3,000 generic drugs store will be opened in different parts of the country, from where people can buy the generic medicines. In your answer, what we need to emphasize is these two schemes complement each other. Those who cannot afford, they will be beneficiaries of this scheme, and those who can afford, they can derive the benefits from this scheme. But obviously there are some issues with generic medicines. Generic medicines availability is one question. Second question is, generic medicines is like you need to prescribe them by the name of the salt. A big chunk of the medicines which are available in our market are fixed dose combinations. Fixed dose combinations where 3-4 salts have been brought together to have one medicine. Now obviously if a doctor is writing such medicines, then the doctor needs to write the names of all the salts which are there. And that will make the exercise very cumbersome and time consuming, especially in government hospitals where doctors are always under pressure because of the huge rush of the patients. The time taken will be very high. Okay, that we need. Another part which we need to take into consideration is that the margin of the medical shops on generic medicines is not very high. So generally they are also not very interested when it comes to providing these medicines to the people, although they are selling it. So until unless we address, obviously generic medicine is very important for affordability, but this is not the only means to have the universal health coverage. We need to go for compulsory license. We should also strengthen the mechanism of drug price control order, especially for national list of essential medicines. When we club all this, then you can have universal health coverage in the country. Fine. But compulsory license, the problem is this might affect bilateral relation, and then the companies will be hesitant to bring investment in your country. So these are very difficult choices for any government to make, whether investment is important or this particular thing, that is healthcare. Obviously in this case the conflict is IPR and healthcare, and they cannot be balanced, and this should be the narrative of your answer on such question, whether we are going to give priority to IPR or whether we need to give priority to healthcare. Till date we have always given priority to healthcare, and that is what the need of the hour as far as our country is concerned. This is obviously generic drugs. Just one more on biotech, that is biopiracy. Like just have a brief outline of this topic, why this particular question, where we need to focus. Obviously here we will be focusing on geographical indication related issues, like Basmati was patented by a US based company with the name Rice Tech. This is the name of a company. Okay, then everybody, all of us know the traditional knowledge like neem, turmeric, they have also been patented by some companies in different parts of the world. These are the examples of biopiracy. So if he will be asking a question, then the question will be somewhat like this, like why India is so much prone to biopiracy? What are the challenges involved in biopiracy? What are the steps taken at the national and the international level to combat biopiracy? Okay, so biopiracy is like this. See, WTO, as we know, has laid down a simple principle that geographical indication and traditional knowledge cannot be patented. Means they are not subjected to individual appropriation. So, the definition of biopiracy is when geographical indication, traditional knowledge and other biological resources are being patented. Patent means monopoly, and obviously patent is a commercial arrangement. For what? For commercial use. As a result, local stakeholders are eased out of the process, means local stakeholders are denied the share in the benefits coming out of it. That is known as biopiracy. Means people of India will not get the benefits arising from the commercial use of the patented version of basmati. That is piracy, biopiracy. In biopiracy, there is an issue of wrong patent and right patent. Wrong patent means those which were against the norms laid down by WTO. WTO said no patent for geographical indication, no patent for traditional knowledge, and when these two are patented, that is obviously biopiracy. So, obviously they needs to be cancelled. But how? A very important initiative which has been taken in the country is by CSIR, Council for Scientific Industrial Research, and that is in the form of Traditional Knowledge Digital Library. CSIR has taken up the documented traditional knowledge of the country and it has been made available in the digital form. Why? Obviously to challenge such patents in other parts of the world where traditional knowledge of the country has been used for the commercial gains. So, CSIR on its basis has challenged somewhere around 488 patents in different countries, and approximately 20% of them have been cancelled. This is a very, very big achievement. This is how the neem and the turmeric patents were also cancelled. Recently, Traditional Knowledge Digital Library has been made open source. Open source means that information which is there in that library could be used for commercial purposes. But if I am using any medicinal formulation which is there in this digital library for the commercial use, means I am making a medicine and want to sell it in the market, then I need to fulfill two conditions. First condition is prior informed consent. Prior informed consent means the concerned authorities I need to approach, and if they say yes, then only I can use it. Another is ABS, access benefit sharing. Access benefit sharing is, if you can recall, is one of the dimensions of Nagoya Protocol. And access benefit sharing, which is a part of Nagoya Protocol, has already been implemented in the country. And one example of access benefit sharing in the Indian context is Kani tribe experiment from Kerala. Kani tribe is a nomadic one, but this tribe was having some traditional knowledge regarding the medicinal properties of some herbs. So, government of Kerala invited an Ayurveda company, and that Ayurveda company used the medicinal information of these tribal people to come up with medicinal formulation, and that was sold in the market. And whatever profits they earned by selling that medicine, a certain percentage was shared with these people. This is access benefit sharing, and obviously it's a very powerful tool to combat biopiracy. So, first tool is Traditional Knowledge Digital Library, and the other tool is access benefit sharing. So, these were some of the important topics related to biotechnology, IPR and health. Now, next will be space. For last 2 years, space has become really important for mains exam, because in 2015 they asked a question on Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, and 2016 the question was very general achievements of India in the space science and technology and its applications. So, if you see the questions, in my opinion, could be from Mtcr, and Indian space program. After MTCR, if you see cryogenic engine, cryogenic technology, this also you need to link with MTCR. Then you can link it with a reusable launch vehicle. Okay. After this Large Hadron Collider, LHC, then gravitational waves, then Indian Neutrino Observatory, INO, which is coming up. So these are like yes, private participation in the space sector, and last but not the least, outer space treaty. So these 4-5 topics or 6 topics, whatever is the number, I think are important from the mains point of view. So let's have a discussion one by one. MTCR, as you know, it's a part of technology denial regime along with nuclear supply group, Wassenaar arrangement and Australia group. It is basically for controlling the space and defense related technologies. So MTCR basically, when India announced that nuclear deals or signed those nuclear deals with US and many other countries, one of the obligation on India was to conform or to synchronize its space and defense import and export policies with the list and the guidelines laid down by MTCR. That process was completed in 2012, and in June 2016 India became 35th member of MTCR. The question they will ask is, what are the gains for India from the membership of MTCR? See, as such, MTCR membership does not guarantee any transfer of technology. This is something contrast to NSG. NSG membership will virtually guarantee us to have access to ENR technology and other such technology. Whereas in MTCR, nowhere it is mentioned that India will be entitled to receive the technologies. So can we say there will be no benefits? No, don't be so quick to draw the conclusion. There are so many benefits. Some of them will be tangible, some of them will be intangible. One benefit, according to me, is India will be part of a decision making system of obviously related to missile proliferation, don't you think? It will enhance the stature of the country. Another thing is India can stop the proliferation of missile technology in its neighborhood. How come we can do that? Everybody knows the geopolitical shift which is taking place, and Russia especially is looking to align itself more with China and Pakistan. And Russia has already sold some military helicopters to Pakistan despite our displeasure with that. So in future, if they are looking to sell some missile technology, which we don't want, then we will have some options in our hands to stop Russia from giving that technology. That will not be there if we are not member of MTCR. Next, one benefit is already there. Earlier the range of BrahMos was 290 km. Now the range of BrahMos will be increased to 600 km. If two countries who are members of MTCR, then they can increase the range of cruise missiles beyond 300 km. Earlier we cannot do that. That's why the range was 290 km, because it's a cruise missile and MTCR does not permit the transfer of any cruise missile technology which is having a range of more than 300 km. Another benefit, according to me, is this: Indian space program. Obviously, Indian space program has suffered because whenever we have conducted some nuclear tests and all, the sanctions were imposed on all the technical organizations, including ISRO. No, when you are a part of the system, you are in that much better position to convince other countries to supply the technology, because it will be under that much better monitoring or greater monitoring, which was not the case earlier. So that convincing power will be there. And this benefit will obviously, you will see that we will be having greater space collaboration like India is having with Israel, India is having with the US, India is looking to have with Australia and other countries as well. So these are obviously MTCR will catalyze such international space collaborations, and then you will see more of Mangalayans, Chandrayans, Astrosats and the Adityas being done in the future. So that is obviously MTCR for you. Next part is this Outer Space Treaty. Outer Space Treaty is 1967. In 1967, this treaty was adopted, and along with Moon Treaty, Rescue Convention, Registration Convention, Liability Convention, this is known as the Space Constitution. So these 5 mechanisms constitute the international space law or the space constitution, no doubt the most important being the Outer Space Treaty. Outer Space Treaty, obviously it has completed 50 years, and this treaty, what are its provision? That outer space is not subjected to national appropriation, means countries, all the countries will have equal stakes when it comes to the peaceful use of outer space. So all are equal. Second aspect is weapons of mass destruction cannot be stored in outer space. Third aspect is the astronauts should be treated as the representative of the mankind. So they should not be treated as the American citizens only, they are the representatives of the entire mankind. No doubt, Outer Space Treaty has been significant when it comes to the launch of so many satellites. It has been responsible to avoiding the conflicts of the countries when it comes to the use of the outer space, but at the same time, there are some challenges as well. And according to these challenges, Outer Space Treaty needs to evolve itself further. First and foremost is there is going to be involvement of more and more of the private sector. Although Outer Space Treaty has clearly said that a country to whom that private sector belongs, that country will be liable for the actions of that particular private sector. So that's one part of it. We don't know how much effective that will be. Another aspect is this, there is a problem of space debris or space pollution, also known as Kessler syndrome. How that problem is going to be addressed? How to fix the liability on this dimension? Next part, this is a challenge. Another challenge is, like say for example, tomorrow a country launches a manned space mission for Mars, and before it reaches Mars, the space debris collides with that mission, resulting in accident. So how the responsibility of that particular thing will be fixed? Because you can't trace a particular debris to which particular country that debris belongs to. Don't you think that will be an international legal and humanitarian crisis? Last but not the least, which is obviously again, countries like China have tested anti-satellite missile. Don't you think it will start a new era of arms race, especially that will contribute in the militarization of space? So the Outer Space Treaty has served very well when it comes to these dimensions, but if it has to remain relevant, it needs to address these dimensions. Okay, so that's it. Then comes to the next one, this Large Hadron Collider. Large Hadron Collider, if a question has to be asked, that question will be that India has got the associate membership of this particular thing, this particular experiment. What are the spin-offs of that? See, the benefits. Large Hadron Collider, as you know, it is the biggest experiment in the field of physics. Biggest experiment in the field of physics. And this experiment is for answering 3 questions. How the origin of mass took place. Mass. Every particle has got a mass. So, how that mass came into existence. Second, what is dark matter and dark energy? Dark matter is 25% of the universe, dark energy is 70% of the universe. So, 95% of the universe you need to answer. Third question is related to antimatter. Question is, at the time of the origin of universe, matter and antimatter were in equal proportion, but we do not find antimatter now. Why? Why we don't get antimatter? These are the 3 questions Large Hadron Collider is looking to answer. So, India became associate member of Large Hadron Collider last year. So, benefits will be, first and foremost, the benefit will be India will have access to the complete data this experiment has generated from first day till date and in future as well. There will be exchange of scientists. This experiment gives out big contracts to the industries in different parts of the world for various things like particle accelerators, for superconducting magnets and other such things. Obviously, Indian industry will be the beneficiary of that. We will be obviously having that cutting edge experience in providing such type of things to the Large Hadron Collider. So, these are the benefits. Obviously, our space program or our research in fundamental physics will also get a boost, because our scientists will also get the opportunity to rub the shoulders with the best in the world when it comes to discussing the nature of these questions. So, obviously, if in future maybe 5 years, 10 years down the line, someone from India might get Nobel Prize in physics for the work done on these things. Although for Higgs boson, which is related to the mass, Nobel Prize has already been awarded, but dark matter, dark energy, we might obviously benefit from that. Large Hadron Collider obviously is going on. It has already confirmed the presence of Higgs boson, which is known as God's particle, and it is responsible for the acquisition of mass. It is because of Higgs boson that the universe has got the mass. Matter has got the mass. Matter is formed by atom was formed by particles. These particles get their mass because of Higgs boson. So, this has already been explained, but obviously other questions we are not having the answer. Large Hadron Collider will provide a basis for the completion, this point must be there, will provide a basis for the completion of the standard model of physics. A standard model of physics is the most accepted and worked upon model in the field of physics till date. Fine. So, this is in brief about Large Hadron Collider. The another question is Indian Neutrino Observatory. I and O. Indian Neutrino Observatory, you know, it is one of the biggest experimental setup for the research on neutrinos. It is coming up in Nilgiri areas in Thane district of Tamil Nadu. This obviously, what are neutrinos? Neutrinos are small neutral particles. They do not have any charge and their mass is many times less than that of electron. So, they are chargeless but not massless. They are the second most abundant particle in universe after photon. They are emitted by stars, they are emitted by nuclear reactors, and they are even emitted by obviously living organisms having radioisotopes in their bodies. But obviously Like why we are doing research on Indian Neutrino Observatory, there have been obviously some reports that this might be affecting human health. Such things are obviously not true based on empirical evidences. In this case actually what we Indian Neutrino Observatory no doubt might be having some environmental effect because it is coming up in that Nilgiri Biosphere Reserve. But other than that, don't expect any adverse effect because neutrinos are known as ghost particles, ghost, G-H-O-S-T, ghost particles. Why they are known as ghost particles? Because they do not interact with any matter which comes into their path. So if they are not interacting, then how come they can cause the effect or the damages? The question is why we are doing research. Obviously this neutrino research is expected to have some practical implications, practical utility. First and foremost, every radioactive material emits neutrinos. There is something known as nuclear proliferation, so this is what I will write in my answer. Nuclear proliferation means unofficially providing nuclear material or nuclear weapon, although nuclear weapons cannot even be provided officially. So if tomorrow you can develop the technology to detect neutrinos, you can track down the transport of such material. Then this could be used for interplanetary communication. Interplanetary means from Earth to Mars. Why we are using neutrinos for that purpose? We are using neutrinos for that purpose because they are neutral particles and they will not be deflected by any magnetic field, so they will remain on course, they will not be deflected from their path. Fermilab in US has already tested a communication device based on neutrinos, but that was within the premises of the lab. Last but not the least, there is a class of neutrinos known as geoneutrinos. It is believed whenever there is a tectonic movement like the earthquake and all, there is release of these neutrinos, and when these neutrinos, if you can detect them, probably we will be in a position to predict the onset of earthquakes and tsunamis. These are the practical implications of the neutrino research. Just if you have the time, then you can add one more dimension, that this will also help in the research on dark matter. Dark matter. Dark matter, why? Because dark matter is something which is invisible but exerts gravitational influence. Why it is invisible? Because it does not interact with light. Interaction with light means there is no reflection. Why it does not reflect light? Because it is supposed to be comprised of chargeless particles. So there is a possibility that there might be some other types of neutrinos considered as the constituents of the dark matter. So Indian Neutrino Observatory will have the following implications. Just one more here. After Indian Neutrino Observatory, another one is gravitational waves. Very important topic, but just few days back Nobel Prize in Physics for 2017 has been awarded to the people who were working on LIGO. LIGO is Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, and as you know, next LIGO will be coming up in India at probably at a place Hingoli in Maharashtra. So what are gravitational waves? What are the implications of the gravitational waves? See, gravitational waves are cataclysmic events. Cataclysmic means huge, massive, which leads to distortion in space and time. As we have read related to the discovery of gravitational waves in 2015, that what happened? Long back, millions of years back, what happened? Two black holes. one having mass 36 times the mass of Sun, another having mass 29 times the mass of Sun. They started moving around each other almost at a speed of light and finally collided. After collision, the mass, which was 3 times the mass of Sun, got released in the form of energy, and that energy leads to the distortions, and those distortions we call as gravitational waves. If still not clear, just imagine a big iron ball this much big in your hands. It's made of solid iron, it's solid, and suddenly you have dropped onto the floor. You end up receiving the vibrations, that is gravitational waves. So gravitational waves, actually they are very, very weak compared to the electromagnetic waves. And in the property of the gravitational waves, the direction in which they are moving, there is slight elongation in the Earth's diameter, slight elongation. So if it is moving in this direction, this way, Earth will get slightly elongated, and the direction perpendicular to the direction of propagation, the Earth will get slightly compressed. And this thing was used in the detection of gravitational waves at LIGO. LIGO in Hanford near Washington, Louisiana, Livingstone obviously in Louisiana. Then there is GEO in Germany, TAMA in Japan, and obviously LIGO is coming up in India. Actually LIGO, if you see, it's an L-shaped structure this way. Each arm was having a length of 4 km. Better you draw this thing in your answer. And here they were having a beam splitter, this is beam splitter, and here you were having mirror, M for mirror, and then there was a laser, and this is PD, photo detector. The laser got released, it was divided into 2 parts, one travelled in this direction, another travelled in this direction. As the speed and distance are same, time will also be same, so this laser will reach this end and this end, they will be reflected back and will arrive at the same point. They will undergo destructive interference, Then let's just listen. When, say for example, there is a gravitational wave travelling in this direction, because of this what will happen, this arm will get slightly elongated, say plus delta L, and this arm will get slightly compressed, so I will write minus delta L. Now what will happen is laser beams will still be splitted. They will not be travelling the same distance, they will be travelling different distances, so they will return at different points here. And when they will return at different points, at this point where my finger is, they will not undergo destructive interference, and what will happen, some of the lasers will be detected here. On this basis, gravitational waves were confirmed in September 2015, 14th September 2015. Next, LIGO, same principle is coming up in Hingoli. The question is the implications. Obviously, the implication will be in astronomy. Questions will be in quantum, obviously physics will be the biggest beneficiary of this particular thing. And as far as India is concerned, it's not that suddenly we are doing work on gravitational waves. There was already a consortium in place in India with the name INDIGO. INDIGO was a consortium of Indian scientists, and they were working on this particular thing for a long time, where the research papers were presented, and now LIGO will give a next push towards this research. And in 2012, this thing, laser gravitational wave, was already identified by the Planning Commission as one of the mega projects as proposed by the Department of Science and Technology. So this is what has happened as far as India is concerned on the gravitational wave front. So these are some of the issues related to space, space as far as mains 2017. is concerned. Cryogenic technology and all, just 1 minute, or yes, cryogenic technology is obviously a very vital component for GSLV. It is obviously a very important thing for manned space mission. It is important for Chandrayaan-2, and obviously it is important for the future manned missions as well, future missions to Mars, like Mars 2 and all that. And cryogenic obviously will enable us to launch satellites weighing more than 4 ton, obviously, and this has already been done with the GSLV Mk3. So these are some of the dimensions associated with the space. Now last is some topics related to IT and nanotech. IT, if I say net neutrality, is important. Digital India, okay. Then after Digital India, quantum computing, okay. After quantum computing, I will be discussing 4th industrial revolution. Then we will talk something about nanotechnology in general. So net neutrality is an issue because of something like this freebasics.org of Mark Zuckerberg. It's again obviously an important area. Here if you see, the important topics are related to net neutrality. Let's discuss this. Net neutrality means like when internet is not biased. What is the meaning internet is not biased? If you see, there was a program announced by Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook, and that program was Free Basics. In this program, they have tied up with 38 information providing sites plus Reliance Communication. And the plan was the Reliance subscribers, if they are visiting those 38 sites, they won't be charged for the internet consumed, and if they will visit any other site other than those 38, then they have to pay for the internet. Then before that, there was an announcement of zero rating plan by Airtel. In that zero rating plan, what happened, that Airtel and this Flipkart, they had a tie-up. And the plan was, if an Airtel subscriber visiting Flipkart site by using obviously Airtel SIM, then Airtel will not charge for it. But if the same subscriber is visiting any other e-commerce site or any other site, there will be charges for the data consumed. So these two were held as an examples which are violating the net neutrality. What is net neutrality? Net neutrality has 3 principles. Same cost means for 1 kilobyte, whether I am watching a video, whether I am having general surfing on Google, data means the cost should be same. Same speed, whatever I am doing, internet should not discriminate if YouTube fast, if other things slow. And obviously equal access, nobody should block any particular site. So in this freebasics.org, the plan obviously the positive side which was highlighted by the argument was that India is one of the least connected countries. Least means in terms of internet. And what will happen, because of this, Digital India will get a push. Digital India is about what? Enhanced access, enhanced internet access. Means those people who are on that other side of the digital divide where the digital services are not available, they should be brought into the net. And this is obviously, if you see that part, that was obviously a very positive thing coming out from initiatives like Free Basics. But the flip side was, people argued this will lead to fragmentation of internet. Fragmentation of internet. How it will lead to fragmentation of internet? Because what will happen, Earlier we have to, now we have two categories, those who have access, those who have do not access, those who don't have access. Now in access there will be two categories, complete access and restricted access. So this is fragmentation of internet. Counter argument from the supporters of free basics was that in future those who are availing this free service will move towards paid service and they will have complete access. That's true. Aspirations of people will grow. But then there is one more argument. Don't you think it will kill the startup culture which is taking shape in the country? These big giants who are already e-commerce and all that, they will tie up with all the major telecom service providers to get the crowd diverted towards them, and the small startups will obviously really struggle to survive. So in net neutrality, in the next part, third part of the debate is, first is principle, second is argument, third is who are the stakeholders. Stakeholders is the government, the consumers, telecom service providers, and OTT, over the top. Over the top means online service providers. Online service providers like WhatsApp, Facebook, video streaming, e-commerce, these are all over the top. So here actually the telecom service providers were arguing, sir, in India telecom market is most competitive, spectrum is very expensive, they have to invest in infrastructure creation. This will, if they can tie up with such like Reliance was tying up with the Facebook, or this Airtel was tying up with Flipkart, this will help them to recover a cost. But then Department of Telecommunication Committee said no. These things have provided more options to the people. And finally, this Telecom Regulatory Authority of India has come out with a paper, and obviously it has come with the guidelines and obviously the notification, and they have made any violation of obviously they have come up with the guidelines which has banned any such a step like the free basics has taken, or this Airtel zero rating plan has taken. Means if there is any violation of the guidelines, then the penalty will be 50,000 rupees per day, and maximum it can go up to 50 lakhs. Yes, the exception are in terms of this closed communication groups, which we call as intranet, and emergency services have been kept out of it. So this is net neutrality. Net neutrality is done. Then obviously next part you can come is nanotechnology. Nanotechnology, obviously when you will writing answer, you will be linking it with fourth industrial revolution. Nanotechnology is like, it is highly interdisciplinary in nature. Interdisciplinary and nanotechnology is described, next part is nanotech. It is interdisciplinary in nature, and it is described as future renaissance. These are the two pillars, and obviously you can link it with fourth industrial revolution. So interdisciplinary, what is the meaning interdisciplinary is? Actually it is a convergence of highly diverse disciplines. Highly diverse disciplines, if you see, there is physics, there is chemistry, there is mathematics, there is biology, all coming together. And this interdisciplinary nature is described as NBIC, Nanotech, Biotech, Information, Communication. And this interdisciplinary nature of one more example of this thing is DNA computing, where DNA is being used for the information storage and the retrieval. And because of the interdisciplinary nature, it is known as future renaissance. Renaissance means revolution. Revolution, why? Because it will bring in highly diverse disciplines on the common platform. Like take example, DNA computing, information technology, biotechnology, same platform. And because of this interdisciplinary nature, this nanotechnology is one of the most important pillars of fourth industrial revolution. If you remember just three things, you have done your job for fourth industrial revolution. One is nanotech, another is artificial intelligence, third one is 3D printing. Just remember these three, you will be able to write answer. But fourth industrial revolution is, what is fourth industrial revolution? It is defined as the convergence of physical, biological and digital. That is again, that is what I was talking to. But nanotechnology, obviously, it is going to create a lot of ethical concerns in future. Ethical concerns environment, ethical concerns health, ethical concerns social issues, ethical concerns related to warfare. Environment, like nanoparticles may cause obviously killing of the bacteria, which is a part of natural recycling. This is environmental aspect. So I am writing it separately. Nanoethics. Nanoethics obviously is another part, fifth part of it. Here health and environment you need to take together. Another part is obviously social. Another part you can take is warfare. Another is economy and IPR. Just one by one we will have a discussion over here. Health, nanoparticles will obviously become a part of food chain and a food web. They will enter the cell and obviously they affect the health of the people. Environment, they will kill the bacteria involved in recycling of the waste. So obviously that will hamper natural recycling, like that of nitrogen cycle, and because of that what will happen, the food security will also be affected. Then comes social aspect. With the help of nanotechnology, extremely powerful surveillance and monitoring instruments could be developed, and that obviously will lead to the erosion of the norms of privacy. Then comes warfare. It will lead to a new type of arms race, like DARPA is having a project Locust. Locust means LOCUST. Locust means they will have multiple robots of the size of probably 1 or 2 inches, or maybe smaller than that. They will be released in the water, will attach to the bottom of the ships like warships, and then obviously cause the explosion. This type of thing will happen. And obviously one more is economy and IPR. Nanotechnology is knowledge intensive sector, and most of the R&D is taking place in developed countries. As a result, they will end up having the patents, and when they will have the patent, don't you think it will start the next wave of domination of the developing countries by the developed countries. One more aspect is, as most of the nano products are commercial products, these companies who have invested quite a hefty amount in the research of these products will like to have as early commercialization of these things as possible. So what they will do, they will try to get released half tested, half baked, half cooked products in the market, and that might result in other types of problems in future. That is why it is very important that there should be regulation of the nano products, what type of nano things we will be allowing and what type of nano things we will not be allowing. But this will not be working if the regulation is done at the national level. It has to happen at the international level. Fine. Just one more, quantum computing, and then we'll come to Digital India. Quantum computing is in news because of what we call this. China has launched a satellite QuES, QUESS. Quantum computing, obviously the idea is to replace, next topic, quantum computing. Okay, it is based on quantum mechanical model of the atom. Quantum mechanical model of the atom, like that Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, Schrodinger wave equation, all these things like quantum numbers. Okay, and the idea is to replace the present day supercomputers with a desktop sized computer, sized I am talking about. Okay. Then another part here is in quantum computing is they like these things, they are based on 2-3 principles. One is known as entanglement and the other is superposition, and their capacity is expressed in qubits or quantum bits. That's why they are going to be extremely powerful. Entangle means when two quantum entities are brought close to each other, they get paired, and after that, even if they are separated, if one is affected, then that effect will be shown on the other as well. This is entanglement. Because of entanglement, there is superposition. Superposition means the possibility of existing in simultaneous states, in two states simultaneously. Qubits means quantum bits. Quantum bits in binary system, you have either 0 or 1. Here all the possibilities exist simultaneously, 0 0 1 0 0 1 and obviously 1 1, all 4 exist simultaneously, whereas in case of binary system either it could be 0 or 1. That's why here more permutation combination are possible. But here in mains they will be asking the implications of that. Obviously the implication will be for cyber security. In such systems, if a country is having quantum computers, then obviously they can breach the security of any database of any country, and this is an alarming sign for us. And obviously if we invest in such technologies for future, then obviously our database will be very much secure, and if anyone will try to obviously breach the security, we will be able to get the real time information and we can take the corrective measures. So these are the possibilities, quantum computing. Obviously this quantum computing, second part of application, first part cyber security, second is big data analysis. Big data, you know, the amount of information which is being generated from so many sources like space research, like health, like drug designing and all that. If you want to arrive at a proper conclusion, then you need to have such machines which can really analyze that data in a very short span of time. After big data, obviously they will also be very extremely useful for defense. Like if you see, there is a company of Canada, D-Wave. That company D-Wave has been asked to supply the quantum computer by Lockheed Martin. So D-Wave will be supplying quantum computer to Lockheed Martin, and Lockheed Martin will use that quantum computer to test the software for the future jets. So these are the possible applications of the quantum computing. Last but not the least, Digital India. If you see Digital India, just there are so many aspects: mission mode projects, state data centers, that's community service centers. This is a hierarchical structure. Then obviously then you can link it to what we call as BharatNet, all this. Next is Digital India. If I have to write an answer, I will be just focusing on the following: enhanced access. Enhanced access means internet access, and here you will bring BharatNet into the answer. Okay, then you will be writing e-governance, and then you will be writing electronic manufacturing. Electronic manufacturing you will link with cyber security, and you will link it with Make in India. Make in India. Okay, fine. So this is what Digital India is all about, and Digital India, obviously enhanced access means this internet services should be provided to all the people, and until and unless we go for indigenization of electronic manufacturing, we won't be able to address the security concerns because of the breaches and all which has been taking place. At some time or the other, we always read that this particular company might be transferring the data in a clandestine manner from our country to somewhere else. So for that, obviously this indigenous manufacturing of electronic component equipments is very, very important, and obviously this will also push the startup and the Make in India program. Okay, fine. So this was my humble effort to discuss some of the issues in science and technology. Wish you all the best for your mains exam. Thank you.